Now, we don't intend to be braggadocious, but I'm pretty sure that the jack-o'-lantern gave away our intention today. That's right. It's Halloween, and as you can see, it's a big one this year.
I didn't even see it.
Anyway, this is my compatriot Juan of the Dead.
Yeah. He's got your hat.
No relation to that crappy movie called Juan of the Dead. I don't know if it's crappy. I haven't even seen it. Why am I saying that? It's probably crappy, though. Anyway, Juan and I, and of course Guntik here, decided to let you know, because this is the season for creepy crawlies, ghosts, and ghoulies.
Ghosts?
Goose.
It's a goose ghost?
It's the ghost of a gust, the goose.
Yeah.
Although I guess technically a gust would already be a ghost. It is an ephemeral wisp of wind.
No one, I guess.
Just roll with it.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, it is the time for creepy stuff, and we decided that this Halloween season we're going to start off by telling you our favorite creepy things. And we're going to start off with movies, man, because that's the go-to for everybody, right? I mean, after all, Halloween just came out. We will be doing a recap of the Halloween series because we're going to see that Halloween movie, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be as disappointing as all the other ones. But anyway, the point is, we're talking about our favorite creepy movie, scary movie, whatever you want to call it. And of course, scary is subjective, man. You know what I'm saying? What's scary to you might not be scary to me. I hate when people talk about horror like, "Well, that's not scary."
A scary movie.
Okay, well, good for you. I mean, neither's Beetlejuice, but that's a horror movie. It's just a horror comedy. You know the drill. So this might not be scary to you, but to us, it is a freakalicious time. Let's talk about yours first, though. I know you've previously mentioned that The Thing is your favorite horror movie.
Yeah.
But really, and then don't get me wrong, deservedly so, John Carpenter at his prime, if you will. Definitely the time he had the most budget.
Yeah.
So there's that.
And the time before he just gave up.
Yes, and it's a definite concrete classic of the genre.
It has
Check
Kurt
that
Russell.
out. 1982 version, please, not the other ones.
Kurt Russell.
Not to hate on the other ones. Yeah, Kurt Russell. Always a reason to see something. But really, you have another movie that ties the number one spot in your old mind grapes.
And surprisingly, we haven't talked about it yet.
And we haven't, even though we were pretty big fans of this series. Even the not so great Army of Darkness. But this is the first one in the series, The Evil Dead, from Sam Raimi. One of the masters of the genre. Even though, you know, he sporadically goes into horror.
Before he gave up.
I don't think he's given up. I think maybe Sony almost made him give up.
Yeah.
With that whole Spider-Man fiasco.
Definitely.
But this is not Spider-Man for sure. The only webs you're going to be seeing here is betwixt trees, because this is the classic.
God, that's the worst.
This is one of the classic Cabin in the Woods movies, man.
This is the Cabin in the Woods movie.
I mean, there was other movies with Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah, but this is the only one that matters.
This is the one that kind of brought it into the new era of horror that Romero ushered in with Night of the Living Dead. But yeah, even though I guess you could argue that the barn was technically, in Night of the Living Dead, was technically in a rural area with some wood, so I guess that would it doesn't count.
You could also claim that Fiend Without a Face was a pretty good Cabin in the Wood movie.
The point is, this is
the
perennial Cabin in the Woods movie that is not called Cabin in the Woods.
Or Fiend Without a Face.
Or Fiend Without a Face, of course. Never forget Fiend Without a Face.
How could you? He has no face.
That's how he's so forgettable. You're like, damn, dude, I swear his face is on the... Oh, no, wait, he had one.
He's just a brain.
We've never seen Fiend Without a Face. We just know it's a stupid brain. But anyway, we have seen Evil Dead, and it is awesome. The misconception here, and I know this ticks you off as much as it does me, is that people take this in context of its sequels.
Yeah.
Part
and the
2,
legacy it's...
Yeah, and the legacy that it has since then. The sequel, Part 2, is a horror comedy. Straight up mixture of gore and grueling horror with slapstick, basically.
Pretty much.
So it's Three Stooges meets a possession movie is what Part 2 is. And Part 3 is an outright action-adventure comedy with
really
some really shoddy effects. And I'm sorry. And we love this series and we love Ash, but Ash, the character, is the only good thing in Army of Darkness. And I know that's like sacrilege to say if you're a horror fan, but we used to love the movie. It's just, it has not aged well. And if you hear Sam Raimi and Ivan Raimi,
they hate it,
talk about it, they're like, man, this is not great. And it's not. But Ash, Bruce Campbell, as Ash Williams, is so good in it that that's really what saves the saving grace of the movie.
Yeah.
Really. And of course, There is even a television series called Ash vs. the Evil Dead, which was in fact great and went back to those horror comedy roots. But the real root of Evil Dead, like that
Tree root.
is a tree root that rapes a woman in this movie, because that is exemplary of how extreme this movie is. And the thing is, the first movie was not intended by the filmmakers to be anything comedic. Unfortunately, because of its legacy, a lot of people now look back on this as if it were a comedy.
And the classic sound commentary tracks where they reveal some of the stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of in-jokes in this, but there were in-jokes for the filmmakers
not
that
for us.
now we, the crowd, know. And now you had an experience with this. Let's just put it this way. You had an experience with this. You went to go see this in the theater.
During Halloween.
The
Perfect time.
You'd think...
Guardian's first time.
You'd think with a lot of these fans in there of horror that they would understand that this is not a comedy. But apparently that was not the case.
No, there were... Man, every single time where, you know, a amusing anecdote has been told behind the scenes, they would bust out laughing and being like, oh! And it was that, like know-it-all laugh.
Yeah.
Like, oh I know this.
Yeah, it's really a way to show off that you know something about it.
Yeah.
To me, I know a lot about this fucking horror movie, but I'm not gonna be like, oh look, that is Rob and Sam by the road as hitchhikers. That's hilarious. It's not hilarious. There's nothing hilarious about that.
No.
It's literally the filmmakers put themselves in there, and you can barely see them. They're all the way over there. There's nothing funny about it. I hate that.
It was full of that throughout. Like, you know, there's a couple bits in the movie where some of the effects are a little off.
Right.
Specifically in one scene where I think one of the possessed people gets stabbed in the back by a knife and they try to reach it.
Mm-hmm.
During that part, everybody was laughing because of the shoddy effect. I'm like, it's not played for laughs, though.
Yeah.
Which is actually one thing I like about the Blu-ray release. They kind of made it into a widescreen, and that effect actually doesn't look bad anymore. And that was the version that we're playing in the freaking theater!
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I don't understand horror fans sometimes. You know, I don't get how they're respecting the genre or a particular film style if they decide that it's okay to project their feelings about it in the theater.
Yeah.
If they're anywhere else, discuss the movie. Why the fuck are you talking in the theater?
Super loud.
Yeah. Anyway, we're ranting here. The point is, this movie deserves the respect of its historical placement in horror history, and you know, it really did a lot of things. First, for indie horror, this was one of those movies like George Romero's Night of the Living Dead that came out of the indies, man. You know, this was made by people that were not in the industry. They raised their own money, they got their own investors, and they put their own, you know, blood, sweat, and tears into it. And the result was this thing that horror fans can look onto as almost like home, you know? I know this, I know that, I know that. And because of that, the experience is richer. Same thing with like Peter Jackson's Bad Taste or Dead Alive. These movies that are just for horror fans, by horror fans, that transcend their time and place. And yeah, man, it is a movie about possession. It is a movie about possession, and it takes on the angle, instead of something like The Exorcist, it takes on the angle of the ravages that the body is put through by the possessing spirits. So it is incredibly, incredibly bloody and bizarre at times, unsettling. It does genuinely have some very unsettling sequences. And if you think about it in that frame of mind, what you're seeing is actually pretty damn disturbing.
Yeah.
It still has some scenes that unnerve me, like Ash's girlfriend. It's his girlfriend, right? That's giggling in the doorway with their fucking rictus, like a fucking clown rictus.
Yeah, which is interesting because that's one of the least heavy makeups in the movie.
But it works
But
fantastically.
yeah, it does. But even then, like, the heavier makeups are actually pretty disturbing to look at.
Yeah, they're so inhuman looking.
Yeah,
and then
yet you can kind of see, like, it just looks like skin breaking.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some humanness in the disgusting look.
Yeah, that's
so it kind of like grounds it and makes it a little more disturbing.
That's exactly what's disturbing about it. That you know inherently that's a human there, and you can see human qualities, but it's gone to such limits of human appearance that you're like, damn, that's fucking disturbing, man. This body has been ravaged to this level, and by a torturing demon. that whole concept is pretty crazy. Now there are, of course, like you said, some elements that are just by nature of the budget can be seen as hokey. But if you're in the mindset to see this the right way, then it is a genuinely scary and disturbing trip.
Yeah.
It's a downright nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a most ferociously original horror film of the year. Quote Stephen King.
Yes. We'll go with that. Yeah. There's an Evil Dead poster up there. Just testament to how much we love it. But yeah, man, this is a great choice. If you haven't seen this movie, check it out. We will probably do a video on that.
Also, check out the remake. It's pretty great.
Yes, the remake, though, it's one of those where it changes a lot, but it's still basically exactly the same movie.
Yeah.
The elements that it needed to change to remain individual, but it's really a good version of this movie, and it really keeps the idea of something intensely gruesome and hard to watch. Maybe even more so than this one.
Yeah.
But yeah, fantastic choice. Much hum. Now, my pick for my favorite creepy flick is Dario Argento's Suspiria. Now, we recently watched this, and you hadn't seen it before. I had actually kind of built a legend around this as far as you were concerned, to the point where I was almost like, I can never show him this, because I built it up so much that disappointment is inevitable.
Yeah.
Now, I would like to see your reaction. Was there disappointment or was there not?
I wasn't disappointed. It was pretty good. It did take me a while to adjust to what I was watching, because though I've seen a lot of Italian horror flicks, I was expecting something different because of how much you had built it up.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, well, this is gonna be the one that's above all those, and is gonna be completely different. But then we started watching. I was like, nope, it's an Italian movie. All right, now I know what to expect. And then I got into it, and it was rad.
Yeah, that is a good way to put it, because Italian horror cinema of the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s is definitely a style all of its own. A style so distinct that even the founders of that style can no longer do it. And I'm talking about the filmmaker behind this movie. Dario Argento became a legend in his field for such amazing movies as Deep Red, Opera, Tenebrae, Phenomena, and of course, what everybody considers to be his masterpiece, Suspiria, which recently got remade, by the way, and we'll be seeing that. But this is the one that kind of cemented his place in horror history, because it really exemplifies his approach to filmmaking, which was not just, let's make something creepy, let's throw some gore at the screen. No, it wasn't that. It was, he created a fabric, a texture that was distinctly interwoven and distinctly his. You can't mistake an Argento film of that period with anybody else's movies. They're his. And there's this tapestry, man. It's just a mixture of the lighting, the camera setups, the music, especially as he worked with the legendary composers Goblin, who did a lot of work for Italian cinema at the time, and have actually toured recently with live
with Goblins.
With live Goblins. No, they've toured recently with showings of Suspiria where they play the score live, which would be pretty neat to see. But yeah, man, this is a movie that is the result of all these elements working to create something artistic. And if any of these elements is missing, the movie's just a movie. You know, if any of these elements is missing, you can see the flaws in it. And the thing about Italian cinema is that it's heavily flawed. You know, the big flaw in Suspiria is the writing.
Yeah.
The dialogue is so exposition heavy that it's ludicrous almost. It's like, all right, well, why don't you just tell me what's going on? Oh, wait, you are.
There's literally a scene where the chick's like, oh, this is a witch.
Yep, this is what's going on, guys.
I mean, I knew this, but okay.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that. You know, Italian cinema at the time was made for international audiences.
Yeah.
So they had to, you know, bridge a lot of chasms of understanding and, you know, getting the audience to understand what the intent was. So they just went with blunt. Here it is. But that's not, that fault aside, it's the atmosphere that this movie kind of fosters up, you know, and the weird imagery. And yes, the ultimate feeling of, there's almost like a disorienting alien feel to the events as they mount up on top of each other.
Add to that the fact that, to me, Italian horror movies, at least of the time, always had that kind of like
otherworldly sense.
Yeah, because of its limitations, like the fact that they do dub every movie, or they did dub every movie, they always felt like detached from real life.
They really do, man.
So that bringing that into a movie that's already kind of built to be that way is works really well.
Now, Suspiria, if you don't know anything about it, is basically about a American ballet dancer who goes to this school in the German rural areas, only to find out that the school is run by, and I'm not really spoiling anything here if you listen to the dialogue in the movie, it's run by witches, okay?
Well, the song that literally just says witch at times.
Now, this is played as a reveal. Oh, no, I shouldn't say a reveal, but it's played as a developing mystery in the movie. But it really isn't.
Yeah.
It really is not. You just know straight off what's going on.
It's mostly for the character.
Yes, exactly. And really where the meat of this movie comes from is you seeing the things that the main character sees. You understanding this and going through the process with her. And the results are astonishing. Again, it has to do a lot with the way things were done by Argento. This is when I first described this to you, I remember explicitly saying that this is such a well put together movie that it's scary when a light changes, or it's unnerving when a light changes. How often can you say that about a movie where lighting unnerves you or unsettles you or puts you at unease in a situation? This is this type of movie, And it's really a strange mix of things, It has elements of the giallo movies, which were basically Italian versions of slasher movies. It has elements of a supernatural movie. It has this bizarre, disjointed art film feel to it and look. It has so many elements, but they all somehow manage to coalesce into something that remains in the minds of cinephiles throughout time. So for this and many other reasons, this movie, despite its faults, and I stress this movie may not be for everyone.
Yeah, it definitely isn't.
In fact, I'm going to guarantee most American viewers would probably dislike this movie.
Yeah, the thing is, like, Italian cinema already, horror cinema, is already a very small audience. Now take that and make it a little more, you have to put a little more thought into it. Well, not even, no. It's just so freaking atmospheric.
Yeah.
It's not just all out gore.
If anything, you have to think less with these movies because it's about you letting... If you apply logic to any Italian cinema at the time, you're done. The movie's over for you. It's going to be shit.
You have to let the movie do its thing.
Yeah, you have to let the movie just draw you into its feeling, its atmosphere, and therein lies the power of this era of Italian cinema. This is the epitome of that. This is what that meant. If you overlook the flaws in dialogue and all that jazz and just let it envelope you, it is quite the experience. And I'm pretty anxious to see this remake that they're making because they did the one thing that did need fixing. They can't duplicate Dario Argento's visual style or audio style, but they can fix the writing. So hopefully the new version will actually be a remake worth being remade. So we'll see about that. This is my favorite horror movie. This is your favorite horror movie. Now, you did have this as your tie favorite horror movie. And recently, I got to say that I found a movie that tied its place with this one. And it is about a witch, no less. And it's called The Witch. And it came out a few years ago, I think 2014. Now,
top 10 hags?
It was one of those, yes, definitely in the top 10 hags. That entire coven. But yeah, man, witches in general just freak me the fuck out as, horror villains. Mainly because we live in a community that is rife with them. And the, urban legend vibe is so strong around them.
Our grandma saw a witch.
Yeah, witches are just like interweaved into Mexican lore. So there's something there from childhood, I guess. But yeah, the movie The Witch is one of these kind of like, in fact, I believe A24 produced it, but it's one of these more kind of art house movies, a la The Quiet Place or, it comes at night or whatever. You know, they have a quieter approach to things. Pacing is tantamount above anything else. And, you know, there's no gore being splashed anywhere, none like that. But it does it so exquisitely, and it builds up to a similar climax as this. And it has what this lacks, and that is a strong script and strong characters. So it really surprised me, man, and it was genuinely unsettling. It has one of the best endings I've seen in a long time in horror. And so, yeah, man, I would put The Witch, just like you did The Thing, on par with this. I would put The Witch on par with Suspiria for completely different reasons, despite the similar thematic.
I heard The Witch is boring. From that very, very trustworthy group I'm in that I keep bringing up and shitting on.
Yeah, that group sucks my dog.
They're not good.
Not my dick, my dog.
Yeah.
In general. They take the whole hound into their mouth.
Suckle on it.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, if you don't have an attention span, then The Witch is not for you. It's not going to gratify you at all. If you'd rather see Michael Myers hack and slashing, then go fucking see that.
You had to shit on Mike?
I have to shit on Mike, bro. I just gotta.
Mike Myers as Michael Myers?
Yeah. Sucks my ass. But anyway, this movie doesn't suck, and these certainly don't suck. And check out The Witch. These are our favorite horror movies. What are your favorite horror movies? Let us know in the comments down below. Hit like, share, subscribe to those notification buttons, because we are out.